After a very difficult start, where it seemed like the Celtics might not be living up to expectations, they have now won 7 straight games and look like one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. The Celtics being one of the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference, is that really real?
In the words of the old disco song, it's got to be real. Yo, let me tell you right now, 7 straight wins. You know what happened 7 games ago, Jacoby? They started Marcus Smart and Marcus Morris. And ever since they made that switch, the Celtics have been better. You know why? Because there's too many chefs in the kitchen. They got a couple of chefs up out of that kitchen, and now we got more room to work. This is not a knock on Jaylen Brown. This is not a knock on Gordon Hayward. Both fine players, and if they started, I think they'd be great. The idea is you can't have everybody in the starting lineup be this overly offensive-minded machine. By taking 2 of those guys out of the starting lineup and kind of balancing the rotation, they get more opportunities for everybody, and that's why they're playing well.
It does seem like that, and once I thought there were 4 elite teams in the Eastern Conference, but now I see it as 2 tiers. I see it as the Raptors and the Celtics, and then there's a gap before you get to the Sixers and the Bucks, and then a gap before the Pacers. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. I think the top 4 are in the same tier. They all have their own issues and strengths, and everyone's got to navigate them. But then there is a gap, and then there's Indiana, and then there's a massive gap, and then there's the 3 teams that are just going to get a playoff berth because.
Yeah. Then there's a Grand Canyon, then you get your first round in the playoffs. Jalen Rose thinks this is Gregg Popovich's last year coaching in the NBA. Is that really real? Is this Pop's last year in the NBA?
I love you, Jalen, but I do not think that is real, and here's why, right? Whoever succeeds Gregg Popovich will be handpicked by Pop. It's not like a regular coaching search that happens when a coach quits or gets fired or whatever. So Pop is going to hand over this thing to one of his disciples. He's not going to hand him or her a team that has a low upside and has a possibility of being bad out the gate. He wants this thing to be set up in a way where the next person who comes in will be successful because he understands the next person who comes in are going to be stepping into some rather large shoes, the shoes of the greatest coach in the history of this league.
Moving on. After a hot start, or a lukewarm start, the Pistons have now lost 6 games in a row. The Pistons being terrible, is this really real?
It's kind of real. It's kind of real because they've had injury issues of their own. Most notably, Ish Smith got hurt about a week ago, and I think that's a big part. He is such a great playmaker for them, and without him, they've really struggled. They've been knocked up. The other part, though, is they had kind of a soft start to their schedule.
Yep.
A lot of home games, low strength of schedule, and now all that's starting to catch up to them, and it's unfortunate it's happening while they're dealing with some injuries.
It feels like 500 is kind of where this team is. Like right now they're 13-13. It kind of feels about right. I think the Pistons aren't terrible, but they're a 500 basketball team that might be the 8 seed, just like they were the year before, That's who the Pistons are until something drastic changes.
Do you think there's a gap between the Pistons and then the other 2 teams that'll make the playoffs in the East?
No. The Wizards and the Hornets? Like, who are we talking about now? Like, Wizards, Hornets, Pistons, it's all the same.
I have no idea.
It's all the same right now.